Welcome to Beyond the Build, where construction, entrepreneurship, and family life intersect. I'm Sean.
And I'm Josh.
Let's break ground here. In this episode, we sit down with Garrett Salpeter, CEO and founder of NeuFit, to explore how culture shows up in every corner of life, from the workplace to client relationships to the way we even raise our kids. With a background in neuroscience and engineering, Garrett brings a unique perspective on building environments that support growth, performance, and well-being. Thank you very much for being here, Garrett. How are you doing today?
I'm excited. Sean, great to see you. Great to meet Josh, and I'm fired up for this one. It should be a lot of fun.
So Garrett and I know each other because we're in a local organization called Entrepreneurs Only, or EO Austin. And it's a group of founders, business owners, CEO, and you join EO Austin, and then there's 35 groups or so of 8 to 10 men and women. And after you join, you try to find a group that is similar. And so when I joined, you didn't drink. I've got 4 kids. I think I had 3 kids at the time. Dinah was probably pregnant because she's been pregnant a lot. And I have a Whoop, and I've had a Whoop. My Whoop is it's actually older than my 4-year-old. So I have more days on this Whoop than my second oldest child. And so going to recruiting, they ask you, tell me about yourself. And so I told them those 3 or 4 things. I like to work out a lot. And they were like, we know the group for you. And so Garrett is in that group. He's had a big influence on that group. Obviously, he is in the sports world, into nutrition, into health. Let's just start out a little bit about you, your background, and how really NeuFit came to be.
I feel very fortunate to have found in my early 20s some sort of professional track that allowed me to combine my interest in engineering and neuroscience, my academic training in engineering and neuroscience, along with my passion for the human body. And I had this experience towards the end of my time in college. I grew up playing ice hockey, played in college. I had some torn ligaments, another injury along the way. And based on my previous experiences where I was just so frustrated with traditional physical therapy, traditional orthopedic medicine, I figured that when the doctor told me I was going to have to get surgery, that it was going to be the case. And I was just kind of down in the dumps towards the end of my time in college. And then I met, through a friend of a friend, I met a guy who's a chiropractor who was doing functional neurology and using something called direct current, which is this unique type of electrical stimulation. So you listening to this have likely seen a TENS unit where you have an electrode on the skin and it makes your muscles twitch. So that is typically alternating current. And then there's a different type called direct current. So this back then was more of an analog device, more like a microcurrent, a bunch of dials, kind of old school device. And working with this guy, the experience was a revelation. It truly was a pain to purpose moment. Went from being down in the dumps to having this experience that was such a contrast from my previous experiences in physical therapy, in orthopedic medicine. And the treatment helped me heal my ligaments, avoid surgery.
Wow.
And it really was this revelation, this epiphany. And I was happy and relieved as an athlete, but as a physics major, as a pre-engineering student, to find something that actually made sense scientifically from first principles, that's what got me so excited. And so I ended up starting a clinic, and came down here for engineering grad school at the University of Texas. And when I probably should have been in the laboratory doing my work, I was networking in the sports medicine world. And I met the chiropractor for the Longhorns football team, ended up renting a 120 square foot room from him. And right when I finished my master's, when I was in my early 20s, I started treating people, renting a room, working under this guy's license, and was using older versions of electrical stimulation. And over about 7 or 8 years, I kept seeing amazing results from using the combination of direct current along with these principles of neuroscience and functional neurology. That inspired me along the way to go back and do another graduate program in neuroscience at UT. And along the way, I kept seeing, with my engineering background, kept seeing ways I wanted to improve the technology. And I was waiting for someone to come out with something and just open more facilities. And finally, long story shorter, got to the point where I realized that what I really had to do was create my own device. I had all these ideas, and it just finally became clear to me that was the thing I had to do. And so after that, putting in the 10,000 hours and working with people for all those years, I pivoted and became a medical device founder. And
very cool.
I'm kind of glad I didn't know how long and how expensive it was going to be to actually come out with the medical device, because I may not have done it at the time, but I did that. And then now we've had our device called the Newbie for neurobioelectric out in the marketplace for about 8 years.
Awesome. It's amazing. And your clients are all over the country.
So we sell primarily to physical therapy clinics, a lot of professional sports teams, and then we have distributors in a couple other countries now who are up and running in the United Kingdom, in Australia, and a few more coming online in the next year also.
That's awesome. I've used it quite a bit. Unfortunately, when you work out and you play sports, you end up with injuries. And so I appreciate your product a lot. I'm actually pain-free right now, so thank you very much.
Awesome. That's right. I'll mention we do have our home office, our clinic here in Austin in the Westlake area. So half physical therapy clinic, half gym. So if you're here locally, of course.
If you're here locally, you can actually try out the newbie and get the benefits of it without being a professional athlete, which is pretty cool for us locally. Great. Thank you for being here. In that journey, obviously, as an entrepreneur, you've created not only an idea and you've created the product, but you've created a company. And you've gone from nothing to a successful company over how many years in total? 8, you said? 8?
We've had our device out now for 8.5, almost 9 years.
So in that, going from a few people to a big company, culture becomes very important to keep people long-term. What is a small behavior that is seen inside your team that most leaders maybe overlook but could actually tell you something about the culture at NeuFit?
There's a few different thoughts I have on this that I want to piece together. First, in terms of culture and how it's evolved over the last 9 years, I think that I wish that I had been more intentional and, of course, known then what I know now, right? We all can say that to some degree. But I'm one of these people who didn't necessarily know about business out of the gate and have that business background looking for an opportunity. I loved doing the thing and then had to figure out how to run a business, sort of building the plane in the air, or whatever the metaphor is, right?
I loved that metaphor, building the plane in the air. That's great.
So there's a lot of components that I've learned through pain, essentially. And so now to finally answer your question about what are the things that one might look at from the outside, to me, it's all about engagement. So it's about people being present, speaking up in meetings. People aren't distracted, aren't looking at their phone. I think that's the biggest thing. So any signs of engagement, and perhaps even more importantly, seeing fewer or no signs of disengagement.
Absolutely. I'd like to say that Josh and I and Diana, who's not here, I think we'd agree. Culture has become a bigger part of the company as we grow.
So what's an example of a core value at NeuFit that you've turned into a clear expectation or a system?
So our core values, I also, in terms of culture, I like to think of culture as the invisible ethos that influences and guides behavior. And I think of core values as decision-making guidelines. It's the filter through which we evaluate any potential decision, behavior, etc. So our core values at NeuFit we have 3 of them. The first is to focus on solutions, then lead by example, and finally to succeed through the success of others. And so these are 3 that there's different ways to see in action. For leading by example, for some of us, it's about actually using our product and living our message like that. For some people, it's stepping up and volunteering to go to events or help with this or that. One of the things that really stands out to me when you ask the question is about succeeding through the success of others and on our team huddles. So this is another thing that I really like, that I resisted for years. It probably took me a couple of years after I first heard about the concept of having a daily huddle. It took me a few years to finally get to the point of, okay, let's try it. And that's because I was at all this resistance around it's a waste of time. It's going to be too difficult, too disruptive to get everyone together for 15 minutes. It's going to mess up people's days, etc. And it turns out to be one of the greatest things I've ever done. But part of why I bring that up is because our core value of succeeding through the success of others is something that we celebrate on our daily huddle. It feels like almost every day we're able to share client wins that come in. So it's the practice owner who was able to change how they practice, have a good business outcome, or to help a patient get out of a wheelchair, or patients write into us from our clinic and then from clinics around the country. They write into us and let us know how grateful they are to have finally recovered after having chronic pain, or how much faster their high school child athlete recovered from surgery, or how because of this autonomic nervous system reset that we do, they were able to reduce their seizure medication, or they
Awesome.
have such a better affect, such a better psychological experience now, because the autonomic nervous system is so relevant, and the bodily health is so relevant for things that we think of that are purely in the brain, like depression and anxiety and things like that. So there's
Amazing.
avenues by working with the nervous system to help that. So that to me is one of the biggest things, is really celebrating those wins, and that gets us going. That gives us energy.
That's cool. And you also have a Super Bowl win behind your company. Is that true?
We have several of the last Super Bowl champions and the last World Series champions.
Oh, yeah?
And we've got several teams in the NHL and NBA playoffs this year that we work with. Yeah, we work with a lot of professional sports teams and players. And Saquon Barkley very graciously did a video with us talking about how we helped him back when he played for the Giants recover from his ACL, and how he used the newbie device as part of his routine. Then he helped the Eagles win the Super Bowl, and the Seahawks, who won it this year, Seahawks use it in their athletic training room. And
cool.
We should have some content coming out with one of their players, their running back who won the Super Bowl MVP. Who got picked up by the Chiefs over the offseason. Should have a little bit of content coming out with him
Amazing.
soon. So really, it's been really cool. It's been really amazing to meet all these different people and get to just see behind the scenes and the highest level of sports.
That's an example of your core value, right? Winning through someone else's success, right? Your product that you've created and distributed has helped athletes and beyond athletes, right? It's amazing to see from our perspective what your product can do for obviously me and Josh, but then everybody. If I shadowed your team for a day, where would I see your values show up without anybody explaining them to me?
I believe you would see, of course, the succeeding through the success of others and celebrating
Absolutely.
wins, like we already talked about. I think in terms of our first focusing on solutions, I think you'd see that in a couple different ways. You'd see it in our operations team in figuring out how to solve challenges around international logistics and delivery, being able to think on the fly and evaluate possible options and feel like they have the autonomy to at least suggest, if not make, decisions that are within their respective roles and responsibilities. I think you'd see it in the way that our sales team educates people, prospects, before they become customers, and then after they become customers, the way that our support and clinical education team talks to people. And from the perspective of, specifically they're focusing on solutions, from the perspective of helping people figure out the best way to work with the nervous system, helping people figure out the best way to solve the problem at hand. And part of the motivation for this was actually influenced by what I don't like in the medical system, because I think a lot of times in traditional medicine, the message shared with patients can be overly dogmatic. It often can have an undertone or even an overt, explicit message of, because I can't help you, this problem can't be solved. Or because I believe this is the best we can do with this condition, you won't be able to do more than that. So it's, and to me, the opposite of solution oriented. It's very limited, and it's very, of course, there's systemic issues around, do we actually try to get people well, or do we want to manage disease and keep people customers of pharmaceuticals for life? Right? There's that whole.
That's another podcast.
I'm not quite so cynical, but I do think that people respond to incentives. I do think the incentive structure is off. And I also think that because of the way that science is done in medicine, there's, of course, overemphasis on pharmaceuticals, inability to necessarily get to the root cause of things. And because of that, there is this notion of, you see it with cancer patients all the time. It's, I can't help you, so you have 6 months to live. It's like, wow, imagine.
Can't imagine that.
Like there, you don't want to give someone false hope, but I think it's also a different message to say, like, I am speaking this over you. You have 6 months to live, and that's it. Versus, you know what? This is the best I can do for you. If you continue down my plan of care, it looks like there's 6 months left, but there are people who have spontaneous remissions. There's people who do other things. Like there may be some, even if I don't have the solution for you, there might be something else that's out there that you can try. So it's more about, let's find that, being responsible without giving false hope. What can we do to find solutions? So that's the spirit of, or at least part of what motivated that elevating to one of our core values. And I think you would see that sort of ethos in the conversations that we're having with prospects or customers, is taking that collaborative approach, attempting to find ways to help people solve their problems.
I agree with everything you're saying. As far as a lot of times in the medical industry, they definitely make you feel pigeonholed to a direction. Yeah. It's critical that you go out there and kind of expand.
And your product is so powerful that you've helped people with MS and other neuro situations, that you've got to have that optimism because it could work for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just did it was released in 2025, so about a year before we're having this conversation, did a study on diabetic peripheral neuropathy. And this is interesting for several reasons. One is that almost 10% of the population has some sort of peripheral neuropathy. So in the United States, that's over 30 million people. Wow. And yet the standard of care, I would say, sucks. It's just about helping people manage their pain. There's no real belief that you can help these people improve function and recover in any meaningful way. So with that backdrop, we did this study where we had 150 patients. Half of them got electrical stimulation with traditional alternating current devices. So think TENS unit or Russian stim, or what most of you may have experienced in a physical therapy clinic or chiropractic office. Half got that, 75 patients, and then the other half got the direct current of our newbie device. And it was fascinating because this was the first study comparing in humans head-to-head alternating current versus direct current. And we saw incredible differences in the effect. With alternating current, what happened there is what most people expected, which is a bit of reduction in pain, and that was about it. With the direct current group, it was hugely different. It was, yes, reductions in pain, at least as significant, if not more, and then also improvements in sensation and function. And we measured the electrical activity in the nerves, did something called EMG, did something called nerve conduction velocity testing, and actually saw increased electrical activity in the nerves. That means there's some sort of improvement in function, perhaps even healing structure of the nerves. So there's a really profound difference there. And that, to me, is one of these examples of focusing on solutions, finding this population that is being left behind by the traditional system, that is underserved, and being able to actually find a solution where they were seeing meaningful improvements in just 6 weeks, doing 2 sessions a week.
That's awesome, man. I can feel his passion.
Yeah, definitely.
I can feel that. So I bet you that just reigns through your culture.
I think so. The people here on our team at NeuFit, I think they share that enthusiasm for the work. For me, I try to run my days through the filter of, if I already had all the money in the world, would I still do what I'm doing? Some days, of course, everyone has the days where it's like, oh, geez, I got to do this and this. But most of the days, the answer is yes, I would do this. Being able to come and do stuff like this, being able to host my own podcast and learn from people and share this. I still love, even now, going to trade shows personally and putting the newbie on people and showing in just 10 minutes how we can help someone's pain and range of motion and stuff like that too. Cool. So I think that's one of the things that really keeps people engaged, is they care, in many cases, even as much as I do, about this work.
Yeah, as leaders, I think it's critical that we keep our pulse on the culture. So what are some leading indicators that your culture is strong before the results show themselves?
There's a few different things that I look at. One of the biggest themes that I think about, of course, I'm looking at this through the lens of neuroscience, as someone whose mission is to help apply neuroscience into the daily practice of physical therapy and orthopedic medicine and athletic training and performance and health. I think a lot about this. And so one of the biggest themes that emerges when you look at the neuroscience of performance in the workplace, or in even in sports teams and leadership, one of the biggest themes that emerges is that of psychological safety. So what this has to do with is how a team member feels on that spectrum or that continuum between threat and safety. If someone feels like they can't speak up for fear of being punished or humiliated, then they won't do it. And that's where you get reduced engagement. Whereas if someone feels safe enough to speak up and share feedback and bring their ideas into the workplace, the more ideas you have in the workplace, the better off you're going to be, because you want to hear from the people who are closest to the actual issue or problem or process you're trying to improve or customer conversations you're trying to optimize. You want to be able to hear from those people. And if they don't feel safe enough to let you know what's happening, then we're going to miss out on the most important input and information and perspective. So to me, I believe it was leading indicators, Josh.
Yes.
I think it's how much in a meeting, how much each participant is willing and able to speak up, and how much we hear from the people on our team about what's going on. And so sometimes it's on our job, it's up to us as leaders to be able to create the setting for that to happen. It's making sure everyone has a one-on-one meeting at some point, whether it's ideally weekly in many companies or at least monthly, have a one-on-one so you can hear how things are going, hear what issues are popping up. Have for us also that daily huddle that we have. So we make sure everyone has a one-on-one meeting. So I have one-on-ones with the members of our leadership team. They have one-on-ones with each of the people in their department. Their departments often meet as a group as well. So it can be a small group setting and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's been nice about EOS for us as well. I think at a high level, sometimes we can forget how important that is to have the one-on-ones and get feedback from each individual employee. And so that EOS, the structure makes it so that you have to do that. And that's provided a lot of insight for us.
And I really like your comment about leading indicator. It made me think of the 5 dysfunctions of a team, where you talked about safety to fear or
threat.
Yeah.
Fear is a great way to put it.
With the 5 dysfunctions of the team, the biggest piece is trust. And if you've got trust, if you can be vulnerable as an employee or leader, that leads to the ability for them to disagree, right? And if they disagree and they get their opinions out there, the company's going to be better. But then everybody's bought in after that, right? And if everyone's bought in, then they're accountable. And if everyone's accountable, it leads to results. So that exactly ties to that 5 dysfunctions of a team, with, you're exactly right, trust being that biggest piece and most important piece in every organization, so that there can be the arguments, so that we all can come to the best solution, so that we're all accountable to what we decide, to what we all get the greatest results. I think that's brilliant, and I think we agree. We have lots of controversy and people speaking up, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
And because everybody, leaders specifically, want to hear what is a better way to do something. So,
and there's a big thing there about, as leaders, very related to this, the other side of this same coin is that we have to have the humility to be able to listen. And a great quote that I've heard along the way is, as goes the founder, so goes the company.
Yep.
And for us, so many of the wounds of the founder show up in the company. And I've heard venture capitalists talk about how they interview founders before making an investment, and they'll ask the founder, what is your core wound, like from childhood and that sort of thing, because they want to know how much work a founder has done on himself or herself in order to see where they may have blind spots, because if they do, they're going to show up in the business.
That's awesome. Really cool. Let's kind of transition to your kids. How do you model values to your kids in a way that they actually absorb versus just hearing? I've got little ones, and so I'm not sure what they're absorbing right now, but you've got a 9 and a 12-year-old, or a
14 and 10.
14
now,
and 10.
Yeah.
And so give us how you best model values to them.
This is one where there's a few things that I feel some conviction around that I'll share, and also I'll come into this with enough humility to say that there's many things that I do better, and there's things that I can learn certainly from you. And we've had some conversations about applying EOS in the family that I really loved. I think you, Sean, had some great insights that I learned from there. So there's a couple of things that I am intentional about. So for instance, one thing that I think about is the growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And you likely have at least heard of these, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Growth mindset is the mindset, the mental framework of understanding that even though I may not be good at this thing or know this thing now, with effort, I can grow into it, I can learn it, I can become at least proficient or competent, if not among the best in the world. It depends. Some of it is natural proclivities combined with how much effort I'm willing to put in over what period of time. The fixed mindset is the opposite. It believes that we are naturally endowed with a certain amount of talent in this certain area, and I am not really able to change that. It's this fixed amount of talent or ability, and it creates a fear of trying something, fear of failure, because failure becomes a condemnation on the identity. It's like, oh, if I'm not good at this thing, if I fail at this thing, that one means that I'm always going to be bad at it because there was the belief of not being able to change it. And it means that I'm less valuable as a person. There's this sort of sense of identity being wrapped up in performance. So there's, I think, very clear work on that. The Carol Dweck is the one, a Stanford psychologist, who first coined that term and wrote a book called Mindset that describes this. Highly recommend that book. So one of the things that I think a lot about in my children is wanting to empower them with that growth mindset, because to me that's the foundation. It's like the meta skill that can allow them to learn any other skill or have some success in any chosen field. And so one of the ways that I implement that with them is whenever, now that they're in school, whenever they have a test and they'll tell me, whether they tell me they got 100% or they got a 40%, I'll ask them, did you do your best? Did you prepare? Because I want to encourage them to think about what they did that went into that. And sometimes getting a 95 is actually not something to celebrate because they didn't study, they didn't prepare, and they actually should have, if they had done their best, gotten 100. Sometimes getting a C- is actually something to celebrate because my daughter really put a lot of effort into it, prepared as best she could, and she actually did achieve the best of her potential on that day in that field. So I'm attempting to help them cultivate more of those types of mindsets. And then I also think generally leading by example, I think they often will hear what we do more than hear what we say. And I think that's a big part of it. One thing that I admit that I struggle with in that regard and would like some input on is as you listening to this perhaps can imagine, I'm very into being physically active. One, because I enjoy it. It gives me energy. I love getting outside. I like the way it makes me feel. I also know about the science of use it or lose it. I know how moving the body impacts the brain. I know how important it is to maintain muscle mass and joint mobility as we get older. I know how relevant that is for overall quality of life. So there's all these different motivations and inspirations that I have. And I am active a lot. I work out. My kids see me working out and stuff like that. And I have had different levels of success in terms of helping them be more active versus wanting to be on screens or watch movies and things like that. And I have some difficulty finding the positive way to inspire without just getting frustrated and being like, stop watching the damn TV.
I get that. Josh, you've probably gone through a little bit of that.
Yeah. Again, some of it's generational. We grew up where I'd go knock on Sean's door and say, hey, let's go play some football at the park. And that was how we entertained ourselves. Yeah. And now there's this entertainment everywhere they look. And so the need to be entertained isn't really like it was when we were young. And so, yeah, I've had to, many a times, my son's 17, about to be 18. So many a times I've had to tell him, cut it off, go to the park, play some basketball, stay active. I think it's a challenge for all parents right now, especially since these kids are getting these screens at a really young age now. And so they're growing up with them as a crutch, is the best way to put it. It's what they rely on when they need to be stimulated mentally. And so, yeah, I think it's a constant battle that every parent deals with, even when they get older.
And there's this whole robust neuroscience around dopamine, and it can be like an addiction. So I intend to and wish to help find ways to enable them to find that same feeling from getting outside, having physical activity, things like that.
Yeah, and even COVID had an impact on it. I always tell Sean, my son was in 5th grade when COVID hit, and he went home for spring break and never went back to school again for a year and a half. And how they communicated with each other was to get on the internet, put on their headphones and play a game with each other. So part of that is instilled in them now. That is how you communicate with people. And I do a great deal of telling my son, no, that's actually not how you communicate with people. It's okay to go to their house It's okay to go talk to them in person. Even phone calls. My son gives me shit all the time. He's like, Dad, why are you always calling me? Text me. And I said, son, I'm going to call you till the day I die. So be prepared for phone call, many more phone calls. So even that kind of thought process, I didn't have my first cell phone until I was 19 years old. Growing up, it was like, shoot, do I call Sean? No, because his mom's probably going to answer the phone. And I really don't want to talk to Sean's mom. I'd rather talk to Sean. So I'm going to go knock on his window and see what he's doing. And that's how we grew up. And so there's a big parallel difference to how people communicate now. And so part of it for me is understanding that is their real world now. But part of it is also me instilling him that there's another way to communicate and other forms of entertainment.
Yeah. And I think we obviously see y'all's worlds from a young kid perspective. And so we're trying to do less TV, and they never have tablets unless we're on a plane. That's a long flight. We're trying to do games, board games, matching games. Jenga is big in our household.
Nice.
So that it's not the TV, right? The stimulus from the electronics. And so we're trying our best to do whatever we can to influence our kids in the best way. I did want to go back one click to your comment about failure and setting an example of getting through failures. And we do that through one of our core values, our family core values, that life is limitless. And I think that's really important. And what I mean is life is limitless is a mindset, like you said. You're not a fixed being. Your skills and your training doesn't stop today. It's forever. And so if you believe that there's something out there that you want to go get, right? You're newbie. I'm sure there was tons of roadblocks you went through, and you had this dedication that I'm going to do it. I know it's going to help millions of people in this world. I'm not going to let it stop me. And so that's how we try to show our little kids that whatever mom and dad are committed to, we're going to do it. And we're going to break through those barriers that could stop us. But when you're dedicated, you can do anything. And so I really like that you're doing that. And that's how we're trying to get them to see that success is whatever you decide. And that's where your stopping point is.
That's real good.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to the rapid fire questions. So what is one word your team would describe you?
Either calm or silly.
Hey, that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I think leaders need to be playful, creative, and fierce.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like the silly is kind of that playful creativeness that you need as a leader.
And I'm not as fierce in many settings. I suppose.
What you've done is fierce. So that's whatever you're about to say. I'm not sure I believe.
Okay. So that sort of drive, and okay, I'll say that. What I was going to say is some of that, looking at part of the fierceness quality is the part that I don't perceive I have as much is compensated for by our integrator, who has a little more. We balance each other out in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little more playful than Sean.
Yes. I have to remind myself, I am the one who gets dressed up and does skits in front of the team. So I do bring that out of me. Josh, one word the team would describe you as?
Passionate.
Nice. I always say the Grinch, because that's usually what I get. No, me.
Oh, you're the Grinch.
That's me. I'm the Grinch. I'm the Grinch that needs to be more playful.
Okay.
All right. Favorite podcast?
Besides my own, I'm guessing.
Besides your own. You can be your own. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I love mine because I get to bring on the people I want to talk to, and then I get to teach about the topics that I love. So shameless plug for the Undercurrent podcast, the NeuFit Undercurrent podcast.
Perfect.
Little play on words there.
That's
I like
great.
puns. That's what my team would say about me.
That's great. You said earlier that you were getting rid of some pain, and I immediately thought pun intended, because your whole business is getting rid of pain. Cold plunge or sauna?
Ooh, there's value in both. I think there's, for more people, more of the time, there's more value in sauna.
Nice.
I'd say that.
One leadership habit you swear by?
Meditation.
Ooh.
Nice.
I'll explain why if you want, or if it's rapid fire, I won't.
Can you do 2 sentences?
As we said before, the wounds of the founder often show up in the business. And to lead an effective business, it's up to me as a leader to work on myself so that I show up as the best person possible to lead the team, because they're going to be, one, following my example. We have mirror neurons and neuroscience describing how the team and historically the tribe or the group of monkeys follows and attempts to mimic the alpha. So there's that. And then also the way that those wounds, if present, can show up in ways that harm the business. So I think it's very important both to model and to be effective.
Awesome. Guilty pleasure snack.
Ooh. Let's see. I don't know if I feel guilty about it, but I like taking popcorn and just putting melted butter on it with my daughter.
Nice. Do you have a popcorn machine or?
I go to Costco and just get the big bags of popcorn and I melt butter in the microwave.
Like grass-fed?
Yeah.
Organic?
Usually like the Kerrygold butter, yeah.
Nice. A biohack you actually believe in?
I'm a big fan, of course, the newbie, sauna, red light, hyperbaric chambers.
Oh, cool.
I think I do.
The sun?
I like all that. Oh my gosh, getting outside in the sun. I think the biggest things are sleep, nutrition, activity, getting outside. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the sun. We can do a whole other podcast on,
I know we can.
On people are so afraid of the sun. You don't want to get sunburned, but there are a lot of benefits.
You need that D3.
Of the sun. Yeah. That's right. Vitamin D. And there's so many things that the infrared light and UV and all these different visible spectrum, visible colors, they all do things for the body. We respond to light. It's bioactive. It's a bioactive. It's like a nutritional supplement. It's like a nutrient. And most people are deficient in that nutrient. But just like you can have too much food, you can also have too much sun and get sunburned. You can have not enough, and you can not have the right types if you're not getting that full spectrum.
So every month, business ownership teaches us something new about people, systems, leadership, or ourselves. Share one lesson from the previous month.
I've got one if you want me to go.
Sure.
Let's talk about humility. I gave a presentation that I bombed the other day and just didn't show up with the playfulness and the creativity. And as a leader, you just got to bring it every day, no matter what, no matter your energy, no matter what's going on in your personal life. And so that to me was my massive learning lesson. And after the presentation, I was, like you said, there's two options. There's one, it's like you can admit you're just not a good presenter, a public speaker, however you want to say, or two, you can really dig into it and learn and educate yourself and try again. And so that's obviously for me, there's no option. It's I'm going to succeed and I'm going to do it a lot better next time. And so that was my biggest learning lesson, is just you cannot have a day off. There's no day offs.
I like that. One thing that I've certainly learned a lot of lessons, often through pain. I think it's nice to learn from other people's mistakes. We don't necessarily have to learn from our own, but I've certainly learned from enough of my own here. In the last month, one thing that I have a little bit of struggle with, a little bit of frustration around, is introducing some new ways, more aggressive ways of using AI within our business, introducing that to the team, and getting some resistance. And I don't know exactly what the solution is, other than going back to, generally speaking, that's the main premise of understanding that people don't like to be told what to do. If I can find more ways, I think that's probably the answer as I'm thinking this through on the fly here. It's probably more about helping them, giving them ways to learn and see avenues for themselves, rather than me coming from on high and recommending this or feeling like I'm cramming this down somebody's throat or something like that, which I hope it wasn't delivered in that way, but perhaps it was. So I think that's
the seagull effect.
What's that?
Swoop in and just shit on everybody and take off.
That's what I do.
Yeah, so I think that's something that is actively on my mind, is figuring out how to position some of these different tools and solutions that I just know can be so helpful to help our people be. We're not replacing anyone. We're just helping our people be more efficient and effective, so they can just like me. I want to spend less time doing administrative stuff and more time focusing on the areas that I'm most interested and passionate about, and where I can add the most value.
So I just reread How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh yeah.
And that is the whole point of that book, is to think about it from their perspective.
Yeah. I think it's been probably 10 years. So since I read that. So my recollection of it is basically, if you tell someone to do something, they're going to retreat into their defensive position. If you help them understand how something is in their best interest and that it becomes their idea, they're going to be all about it, right? Is that sort of
That's the summary, yeah.
It's so funny. I resisted reading that book for a long time because if from the title, I was like, it feels manipulative or something like that. So I had known about it for probably 10 years. And then before I finally read it, another 10 years ago. And then when I did, I was just like, wow, this is not what I thought at all.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a good lesson for me this last month has been how important it is to get feedback from outside sources. I think naturally I've been resistant in the past to allowing myself to be critiqued and criticized just because of ego or whatever. I'm always pretty apprehensive about it. Sean's done a great job of showing me how important that is and how important it is to get those outside perspectives so that you can take a different look at how things are running. And a big one for me was the RA, the Remodelers Advantage, which was a group of basically guys I had never met before from all around the country who come in and deep dive into the business, and they look at the numbers and look at the staff and interview the team and get their pulse on the culture of the company. And then they come back and give you a pretty intensive review process. And I've always been just apprehensive about that kind of stuff. And this last meeting, it really opened my eyes to how important that is, because we tend to, as leaders, just get tunnel vision and stop checking in on other ways or other possibilities that we could be managing or building something. So that's been a big lesson for me this last month, is to make sure I value that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I agree. The more experts you rely on, the better the end result's going to be. We don't always have to listen to everything we hear, but we got to hear it and see if it makes sense or not. So we've talked a lot about business, but one thing we all care a lot is about the people who work behind the work. So let's talk about your family and life outside of your day-to-day work. How do you balance work and family life?
My daughters are both in the age where they have after-school activities, can't yet drive themselves. So a big part of my relationship with them and the time I spend with them is driving to activities. And I've observed in myself some change where there were times where I would resent that or feel like a waste of time. I'm like, anyone can do this. And then also now my wife and I separated, so I've moved out of the house almost 2 years ago from the time we're having this conversation. And especially in those last 2 years, I've appreciated that time even more because I don't see them as much. And I've found that when I do see them, especially if it's after school, if I've been able to complete my work day and get done the few things that I really need to do to feel like I'm moving forward and making progress in these highest priority areas for me professionally, I feel like I can be more present with them, appreciate that time more. So I really like that. And then finding ways to bond with each of them. So my younger one just started playing team sports this year. So she was dabbling, played a little volleyball, basketball, lacrosse, golf at school. So hitting the volleyball with her, which I had never done before, but we learned together, taking her out to play golf a couple times, finding ways to do that. And then my older one is a very competitive dancer. She's on the dance team at Westlake and dances in a competitive company. And she made, as a freshman, she made the JV dance team, and she's really motivated to make the varsity team. So I've been actually helping her with some training. So it's been fun because I can actually lend some of my expertise, all this work that I've spent so much time and effort cultivating, this knowledge, actually apply that to her and help her increase her power and some flexibility and different things. So it's cool that she's motivated and inspired to attempt to make that higher level team. And we've been working out 2 or 3 times a week, and that is the highlight of my week. It's been so wonderful.
That's awesome. So you're using the newbie? Is it newbie training or is it? Yeah,
we do some
cool.
newbie training with her for coordination patterns, for mobility and flexibility. And then we do, like, you've been to our clinic, you've seen the Super Cat. So it's this machine where you have a harness or pads on your shoulders, and there's a lever arm with weights so you can jump on it. So we've been working on her vertical jump, doing some things without the device also. But yeah, just using the whole NeuFit method on her. So it's been so fun.
I know how much you like golf too, so I'm sure it's nice to have somebody who you can get out there and whether it's the range or play some holes. I mean, definitely look forward to that day as well, to have a companion.
That was like a dream come true to have her play golf this year and then want to come out and play with me. She's come out a couple times to the course, and it's been really fun.
Garrett, thanks for being on the podcast with us. Those listening, please, we invite you to submit questions, follow us on social, rate the podcast, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much from Josh, myself, and Garrett, and Beyond the Build. Have a great one.